This street urchin reveals a secret to the millionaire, but what happens minutes later will shock you. Comment giving a rating from 0 to 10 for my story. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The rain beat relentlessly against the windows of the Gilded Spoon Diner when Jonathan Sterling, 30, methodically cut the ribeye steak he'd ordered for lunch. His dark hair was perfectly combed, and his bespoke suit highlighted his striking appearance, which turned heads everywhere he went in the small town of Harmony Creek, Pennsylvania. As the heir to a considerable fortune left by his grandfather and owner of the largest grocery store chain in the region, Jonathan had amassed an enviable fortune through savvy investments in the stock market and diversified holdings. That Tuesday afternoon in March, he was eating alone, as was his custom, taking advantage of the quiet moment to mentally review his company's numbers. His businesses were steadily thriving, generating a cash flow that allowed him to maintain a comfortable lifestyle and still reinvest capital in new opportunities. Part of his wealth was invested in conservative funds, while a smaller, more daring portion included even bitcoins, following the trends in the financial market. The sound of the diner door opening pulled him from his thoughts. A gust of cold wind brought with it the smell of wet earth and something else, the unmistakable odor of dirty clothes and days without a bath. Jonathan looked up from his plate and saw a small child standing in the entrance, dripping rainwater onto the polished wooden floor. The girl couldn't have been more than 4 years old, but her fragile, malnourished appearance made her seem even smaller. Her brown hair was tangled and stuck to her thin face, and her clothes, a faded t-shirt and a torn skirt, hung on her skeletal little body. Her bare feet left wet marks as she walked hesitantly between the empty tables of the upscale diner. The waiters exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. The owner of the establishment, Mr. Henderson, emerged from the kitchen with a stern expression, ready to escort the intruder out. But before he could act, the girl approached Jonathan's table directly. "Mister," she said in a small but surprisingly firm voice, "can you give me the rest of your food?" Jonathan paused with the fork in the air, watching those big, dark eyes that stared at him with a disconcerting seriousness for such a young child. There was something in that look that troubled him, a forced maturity that no child should possess. "Hey, kid, get out of here right now, Mr. Henderson interjected, approaching the table. "This is no place for—" "Wait," Jonathan said, raising his hand. Something about this girl had piqued his curiosity. "What's your name?" "Isabel," she replied, wiping her nose with the back of her dirty hand. "Isabel Davis. And where are your parents, Isabel?" The girl lowered her eyes for a moment, and when she raised them again, there was a fierce determination there. "My mom, she left. A long time ago." Jonathan felt a strange pang in his chest. He had lost his own parents at a young age, having been raised by his grandfather. He recognized the pain of loneliness in those child's eyes. "Please, mister," Isabel continued, taking a step closer to the table, "I'm really hungry, and if you give me the rest of your food, I'll tell you a very important secret." "What kind of secret?" Jonathan asked, intrigued by the child's seriousness. Isabel looked around, checking if anyone else was listening. Then she leaned in slightly and whispered, "I know who wants to hurt you. I heard them talking." The fork slipped from Jonathan's hand and clattered on the plate with a metallic noise. "What do you mean?" "I sleep in a place where people don't see me," Isabel explained, her voice low but clear. "And sometimes I hear things I shouldn't hear. About you. About what they want to do." Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine. Lately, he had noticed some strange behaviors around him. Suspicious glances, conversations that stopped abruptly when he approached, small, inexplicable incidents in his businesses. He had attributed it all to paranoia, but perhaps— "Sit down," he said, pushing out the chair next to him. "Waiter, bring another plate." Mr. Henderson frowned, but didn't dare contradict one of the establishment's most important customers. Isabel climbed onto the high chair with difficulty, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the food being placed in front of her. As she ate with a heartbreaking voracity, Jonathan watched every movement. The child chewed slowly, savoring each bite as if it were her last. From time to time she looked up at him as if to make sure he hadn't changed his mind. "Now tell me about this secret," Jonathan said when she finished. Isabel wiped her mouth with the napkin and looked him directly in the eyes. "The pretty lady who's always with you, she doesn't really like you." "Brenda?" Jonathan asked, feeling his heart race. "She talks to an ugly man in a hidden place. They talk about how to make you have an accident that looks real but isn't." Isabel's words echoed in Jonathan's mind like an alarm bell. Brenda, his fiancée of 3 years, had always been ambitious, but he never imagined she could be capable of something like this. Or was it just the imagination of a traumatized child? "Where did you hear this?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "In the old house near the cemetery. I hide there when it rains really hard. They don't know I'm there." Jonathan knew the place, an abandoned house that had belonged to a family who had moved away years ago. If Brenda was really meeting someone there, something was very wrong. The rain continued to beat against the windows when Isabel finished her story. Jonathan paid the bill and, impulsively, offered her money to buy clothes and food. But when he reached out with the bills, she recoiled. "I don't want your money just because," she said with surprising dignity. "I told you the secret because you gave me food when I asked. Now we're even." At that moment, watching little Isabel disappear into the rain, Jonathan had no idea that he had just met the person who would change his life forever. During the 2 weeks following the meeting at the diner, Jonathan couldn't get Isabel out of his mind. The girl's words echoed constantly in his thoughts, especially when he watched Brenda. His 28-year-old fiancée had always been a determined and ambitious woman, characteristics that initially attracted him. The daughter of a bankrupt local merchant, she had approached him 3 years ago with a calculated elegance that now, on second thought, seemed too suspicious. Brenda worked as the manager of a small boutique downtown, but her expensive clothes and jewelry always intrigued Jonathan. When he questioned her about her spending, she claimed to have an inheritance from a distant aunt, an explanation he had never investigated thoroughly. Now, watching her more carefully, he noticed how her eyes sparkled whenever they talked about his stock investments or the growth of his net worth. On Thursday night, while they were dining at his mansion outside of town, Brenda made a comment that put him on alert. "Honey, don't you think you should update your life insurance policy?" she asked casually, cutting her grilled salmon. "With all your new investments in funds and holdings, it would be prudent to increase the coverage." Jonathan almost choked on his wine. "Why this sudden concern?" "It's just that you've been driving a lot lately, visiting the branches, overseeing the businesses. The road to Harrisburg is dangerous, especially at night." Brenda smiled sweetly, but there was something calculating in her eyes. "I want to make sure I'm protected if something happens." Isabel's words came back like a punch to the stomach. An accident that looks real, but isn't. Jonathan pretended to agree with the suggestion, but inside he felt a chill growing. The next day, he decided to look for Isabel again. He spent the entire morning driving through the streets of Harmony Creek, especially near the cemetery where she mentioned hiding. Around noon, he found her sitting under a tree behind the church, drawing in the dirt with a stick. "Hi, Isabel," he said, approaching slowly so as not to scare her. The girl looked up, and a shy smile lit up her thin face. "Hi, Mr. Jonathan. I remember your name because I heard them saying it." "Them who?" he asked, sitting down next to her on the damp grass. "The pretty lady and the ugly man. They say your name all the time." Isabel continued drawing, creating small birds in the dirt. "They said you have a lot of money saved, and she's going to get it all when you're not here anymore." Jonathan felt his hands tremble. "Were you able to see this man? What does he look like?" He has greasy hands and speaks in a rough voice. He wears dirty blue clothes. And he has a strange mark on his arm, like a drawing made with ink that doesn't come off. The description made Jonathan think immediately of Dale Grease Monkey Murphy, the local mechanic known for taking on any kind of job, no matter how questionable. Dale had a snake tattoo on his right forearm and a dubious reputation in town. "Isabel, where do you sleep? Where do you live?" he asked, observing the girl's even dirtier clothes. "I don't live anywhere," she replied simply. "Since my mom left, I sleep wherever I can. Sometimes in the old house, sometimes here behind the church, sometimes in the abandoned shed near the river." "And your mom? When did she leave?" Isabel's eyes filled with tears, but she held them back with determination. "A long time ago, over 2 years. She left one morning and said she was coming back, but she never did. The neighbor took care of me for a while, but then she left too and forgot about me." Jonathan felt his heart break. A 4-year-old child surviving alone on the streets for 2 years. How hadn't the town noticed? How had he himself never realized? "Isabel, do you want to come with me? I can give you food, clean clothes, a safe place to sleep." The girl watched him with her big, serious eyes. "Why do you want to help me?" "Because you helped me first. And because—" Jonathan paused, searching for the right words. "Because every child deserves to have someone who takes care of them." Isabel considered the proposal for a long moment. "If I go with you, the pretty lady will see me. And if she sees me, she'll know that I know her secret." The child's maturity was frightening. At 4 years old, she already understood concepts of danger and consequence that many adults ignored. "Then let's do this," Jonathan said. "I'm going to rent a small apartment for you, away from my house. I'm going to hire someone to take care of you, someone I trust. And we'll meet regularly, but in secret." 3 days later, Jonathan had discreetly rented a small apartment in the back of Mrs. Higgins' house, a 65-year-old woman who had been a nanny for several families in the town and was known for her discretion and kindness. He made up a story about a distant niece who needed temporary care, and Mrs. Higgins accepted the proposal without asking too many questions. Seeing Isabel taking her first hot bath in years, wearing clean clothes and eating a full meal was one of the most touching moments of Jonathan's life. The physical transformation was impressive. With her face clean and hair washed, she was a beautiful girl, with delicate features and expressive eyes. But it was during one of his visits that Isabel revealed even more disturbing information. "Mr. Jonathan," she said, as they ate popcorn that Mrs. Higgins had made, "I heard them talking about your car." "My car?" "They said they're going to mess with the brakes, that they're going to make it look like it broke on its own, but actually they're going to break it on purpose." Jonathan felt his blood run cold. His pickup truck, which he used daily to visit the grocery store branches, had been having some strange brake problems recently. He had taken it to Dale's garage to check it out, and the mechanic had said everything was normal. "When did you hear this?" "Last night. They met at the old house again. The pretty lady was very angry because you didn't want to change the insurance yet. Brenda had insisted again on the life insurance during dinner the night before, and Jonathan had made excuses to postpone the decision. Apparently, that had frustrated her plans. That night, Jonathan couldn't sleep. He got up several times to check the locks, check the windows, examine his car in the garage. For the first time in his adult life, he felt real fear. Not just fear for his own safety, but mainly for Isabel's safety. If Brenda found out that he knew about her plans, what other desperate measures could she take? The next morning, he decided to take an action that would change everything. He called Michael Davies, his best friend since childhood and a minor partner in 2 of his grocery stores. Michael was a lawyer, but also someone he trusted completely. "Michael, I need to talk to you about something very serious," he said on the phone. "Sure, Jonathan, what's up?" "Something that could cost me my life. Can you come over tonight and bring your recorder?" When he hung up the phone, Jonathan knew there was no turning back. He was about to find out how far Brenda's ambition really reached, and if his fortune was worth more than his life in the eyes of the woman he had promised to love. Michael Davies arrived at Jonathan's mansion punctually at 8 o'clock at night, carrying a leather briefcase and a worried expression. The two men had known each other since they were 7 years old, when they studied at the same elementary school, and Michael knew how to recognize when his friend was truly disturbed. At 32, the lawyer had built a solid career in the city, specializing in corporate law, which made him a natural partner in Jonathan's businesses. "You look terrible," Michael said, entering the luxurious living room. "What's going on?" Jonathan poured 2 glasses of whiskey and sat down across from his friend. "Michael, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, but I need you to listen to me until the end." Over the next hour, Jonathan recounted everything. The encounter with Isabel, the revelations about Brenda, the suspicions about Dale Grease Monkey, the strange problems with his car. Michael listened in silence, making occasional notes, his expression growing increasingly serious. "Jonathan, this is very serious," he said finally. "If it's true, we're talking about attempted premeditated murder." "If it's true," Jonathan repeated. "Don't you believe me? It's not that. It's just a 4-year-old child as the sole witness. Any court would question the credibility of the testimony." At that moment, Jonathan's cell phone rang. It was Brenda. "Honey, where are you?" she asked in a syrupy voice. "I thought we were having dinner together tonight." "I'm taking care of some business with Michael," he replied, trying to keep his voice normal. "Company stuff." "Oh, that's too bad. I was missing you." There was a pause. "By the way, have you thought about that insurance thing? I talked to a broker today, and he said it would be really easy to update." Jonathan and Michael exchanged glances. "I'll think about it," Jonathan said. "Don't think too much, honey. We never know what might happen." Brenda's tone was sweet, but there was something menacing in her words. After Brenda hung up, Michael shook his head. "That was pretty direct. She's pushing too hard." "So you believe me?" "I'm starting to believe you, but we need more concrete evidence." Michael got up and began to pace the room. "Let's do this. I'm going to discreetly hire a private investigator to follow Brenda. And you're going to take your car to another mechanic, someone trustworthy, to check if it's been sabotaged." The next morning, Jonathan visited Isabel at Mrs. Higgins' apartment. The girl was playing with dolls that he had bought, but her face lit up when she saw him. "Mr. Jonathan, Mrs. Higgins made chocolate cake yesterday. Do you want a piece?" "Of course I do," he said, sitting down next to her. "Isabel, I need to ask you some more questions about what you heard." The girl put the doll aside and looked at him seriously. "Did they say more things?" "I don't know. That's why I need you to tell me everything you remember, even if it seems unimportant." Isabel closed her eyes, concentrating. "The pretty lady said that after the accident happens, she's going to sell everything really fast. She talked about dollars, about how she's going to keep the money far away from here." "Dollars." "She said she knows a place where she can exchange dollars for dollars without anyone knowing, and that she's going to live in a big city far away from here." Jonathan felt a chill. Brenda was planning not only his elimination, but also her escape. She had thought of everything. "And the man with the tattoo? What did he say?" "He said he knows the road where you always drive. He said there's a dangerous curve near the bridge, where cars have crashed before. He's going to make the accident happen there, to make it look like it was the road's fault." Jonathan knew the curve that Isabel was describing well. It was indeed a dangerous stretch of the road to Harrisburg, where there had been some accidents over the years. A perfect place to disguise a murder. "Isabel, you're very brave and very smart," he said, stroking the girl's hair. "But now I need you to stay here with Mrs. Higgins and don't go out for anything, okay? It's dangerous." "I know it's dangerous," she replied with a disconcerting maturity. "But I can't let anything bad happen to you. You're the first person who's been good to me since my mum left." The girl's words touched Jonathan deeply. In such a short time, she had become incredibly important to him, awakening paternal feelings he never imagined possessing. That afternoon, he discreetly took his pickup truck to Mr. Johnson's garage, an honest mechanic who had been serving his family for decades. The diagnosis was shocking. "Mr. Sterling, someone messed with the brakes on this car," Mr. Johnson said, emerging from under the vehicle with his face covered in grease. It was done on purpose, but in a clever way. The brakes would fail completely after about 2 or 3 days of normal use. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Whoever did this knows mechanics well. They knew exactly where to cut so that it would look like natural wear and tear, but be fatal at the right time." Jonathan left the garage with wobbly legs. Isabel's words were true. Brenda and Dale, Grease Monkey, really were planning to kill him. That night he met with Michael again, this time in the lawyer's office, far from prying ears. "I have the proof," Jonathan said, handing over the mechanic's report. "And did the investigator you hired find anything?" Michael opened a folder with photographs. "Brenda met with Dale 3 times this week, always in isolated locations. And we discovered something else. She opened a bank account in Pittsburgh 2 months ago, an account you don't know about. How is that possible? She used your personal documents, probably copied without you knowing. And she made frequent withdrawals of small amounts from your joint accounts, transferring them to this secret account." Jonathan felt the anger rising. "She's been stealing my money for months?" "It seems so, and there's more." Michael showed other documents. "She researched wills, inheritances, life insurance. She visited 3 different brokerage firms, always asking about multi-million-dollar policies." The scale of the betrayal was devastating. Brenda had not only planned to kill him, she had prepared meticulously for months, maybe years. "What do we do now?" Jonathan asked. "First, you can't let her suspect that you know anything. Keep acting normally. Second, we're going to document everything and prepare a trap." "What kind of trap?" Michael smiled coldly. "We're going to give her exactly what she wants, a perfect opportunity to execute the plan. But this time, we'll be ready." 2 days later, Jonathan announced to Brenda that he would be taking a business trip to Harrisburg the following weekend, alone, to close an important deal. He also said that he had decided to update his life insurance policy, significantly increasing the value of the policy. Brenda's eyes sparkled with a satisfaction she could barely disguise. "That's great, honey," she said, kissing him on the cheek. "I'm sure everything will go well on this trip." That night, while Brenda slept beside him, Jonathan stayed awake, watching the face of the woman he had loved and who was now planning to kill him. How had he been so blind? How hadn't he realized that his fortune had always been more attractive than he himself? But one thing was certain. If Brenda wanted to play a dangerous game, he was ready to show that he knew how to play too. And this time, he had a little ally whose genuine love was worth more than all the bitcoins and holdings in the world. Michael's plan was risky, but ingenious in its simplicity. On Friday morning, Jonathan announced his trip to Harrisburg, scheduled for Saturday morning. Brenda could barely contain her satisfaction, immediately offering to pack his luggage and even suggesting the ideal time for departure. "You should leave really early, honey," she said, arranging his shirts with exaggerated care. "Around 6 in the morning. The road is less busy, and you'll get there faster." Jonathan agreed, knowing that she was deliberately choosing the perfect time for the accident. On the road to Harrisburg, at 6 in the morning on Saturday, there would be few cars, few witnesses. Meanwhile, Isabel remained in Mrs. Higgins' apartment. But there was something different about the girl. During his visit on Thursday, Jonathan noticed that she was quieter than normal, playing distractedly with her dolls. "What's wrong, little one?" he asked, sitting down next to her. "Mr. Jonathan, I'm scared," she confessed, hugging a rag doll tightly. "What if they find out that I told you everything?" "They won't find out. You're safe here." "But what if they do? What if they come after me?" Isabel's eyes filled with tears. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, but I'm scared too. Jonathan pulled her into a tight hug, feeling his heart break. That child had gone through so much suffering in her short life, and now she was risking her own safety to protect him. Isabel, after tomorrow, when all this is over, I'm going to take care of you forever. You'll never have to hide or be afraid again. I promise. Really? She asked, her big eyes shining with hope. Really? You're going to live with me, you're going to study, have all the toys you want, and we're going to be a family. The word family made Isabel smile for the first time in days. It was all she had wanted since her mother disappeared. On Friday night, Brenda insisted on having dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town, claiming she wanted a romantic farewell before the trip. During the meal, she was strangely animated, talking about future plans with an enthusiasm that now seemed sinister to Jonathan. When you get back from Harrisburg, we can start planning our wedding, she said, toasting with champagne. I thought we could have the ceremony at the end of the year. What's the rush? Jonathan asked, watching her reactions carefully. It's not a rush, it's enthusiasm. Brenda laughed, but there was something forced in the sound. We're perfect for each other, don't you think? You with all your wealth and your prosperous investments, me with my admiration for all that. The words sounded like a disguised confession. Brenda had just admitted, indirectly, that her interest was purely financial. Saturday dawned cold and foggy. At 5:30 in the morning, Jonathan loaded his bags into the trunk of the pickup truck, knowing that Brenda was watching him from the bedroom window. She came down in her nightgown to say goodbye, kissing him with an intensity that he now recognized as disguised relief. Drive carefully, she said, stroking his face. The road can be dangerous. I'll be careful, he replied, beginning to understand the depth of Brenda's cruelty. She was literally saying goodbye to him, knowing that she would never see him alive again. But instead of heading to Harrisburg, Jonathan drove to a gas station on the outskirts of town, where Michael was waiting for him with another car. They had discreetly hired a professional driver, a former military policeman, to drive the pickup truck down the dangerous road, wearing a bulletproof vest and with safety equipment. If Dale tried to cause an accident, he would be prepared to survive and serve as a witness. Meanwhile, Jonathan and Michael headed to the abandoned house near the cemetery, where Isabel had overheard the conversations. They brought professional recording equipment, planning to catch Brenda and Dale red-handed when they met to celebrate the success of the plan. At 8 in the morning, as expected, Brenda arrived at the abandoned location. 15 minutes later, Dale appeared on his loud motorcycle. The two embraced with an intimacy that revealed their relationship went far beyond a simple criminal partnership. "Did you do it?" Brenda asked anxiously. "Of course I did it," Dale replied, lighting a cigarette. "The brakes will fail exactly on the curve by the bridge like we planned. It will look like a perfect accident." "And are you sure he left at the right time?" "I saw him pass by the main road at 6:15. He should be getting to the curve now." Brenda laughed, a cold and calculating sound. "I'm finally going to get rid of that idiot. 3 years pretending to love that boring man was worth it." "And the money?" Dale asked. "I've already transferred half of the advance inheritance to my secret account. With the life insurance he finally signed, we'll have enough money to live like kings anywhere in the world." "You're brilliant, Brenda. From the first day we met, I knew you could do it." It was then that Brenda revealed what no one expected. "Dale, there's something I never told you. That street urchin who wanders around the city, she's my daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Jonathan and Michael exchanged glances in total shock. "Your daughter?" Dale repeated incredulously. "Isabel! I abandoned her 2 years ago when I met Jonathan. I couldn't show up with a child. It would ruin all my plans. I pretended to be single and without a family so that he would fall in love with me. But you left your own daughter on the street." "It was necessary," Brenda said coldly. A child would be an obstacle. Now that I'm going to have all of Jonathan's money, maybe I'll take her back, or maybe not. She survived on her own so far. The revelation hit Jonathan like a lightning bolt. Isabel was not just an abandoned child. She was the daughter of the woman who had planned to kill him. The little one who had saved him was the daughter of his own would-be murderer. But there were more revelations coming. By the way, Brenda continued, if by any chance Jonathan survives the accident, I have a plan B. I found out that he's been secretly helping a street child. If he survives, I'm going to claim that he has suspicious behavior with minors, that he's hiding a child in someone else's home. His reputation will be ruined, and I can still get part of the inheritance in the divorce. Brenda's evil seemed to have no limits. She was willing to destroy not only Jonathan, but also her own daughter, if it was convenient for her plans. At that moment, Dale's cell phone rang. It was the driver they had hired to confirm the accident. "Hey? Did it work?" Dale asked, putting the phone on speakerphone. "Dude, something strange happened," said the voice on the other end. "The guy didn't die. The car flipped on the curve like you said it would happen, but when I went to check, there was another guy driving, a big guy with strange equipment, and he was recording everything." Brenda's face paled. "What do you mean, another guy?" "It's a trap!" Dale shouted. "They know everything." It was at that moment that Jonathan and Michael emerged from their hiding place, accompanied by 2 investigators they had hired as witnesses. "We know everything," Jonathan said, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and disappointment, "including the fact that you abandoned your own daughter to rob me." Brenda tried to run, but was quickly surrounded. Dale tried to escape on his motorcycle, but the investigators had already flattened his tires. "Jonathan, I can explain," Brenda began, but he cut her off. "There's nothing to explain. You planned my elimination, stole my money, and abandoned an innocent child to die on the streets. A child who, ironically, was the one who saved me from you." The police arrived minutes later, alerted by Michael. Brenda and Dale were arrested red-handed, with all their confessions recorded in high definition. Later that day, Jonathan went to pick up Isabel from Mrs. Higgins' apartment. When he told her about Brenda being her mother, the girl showed no surprise. "I knew," she said simply. "I always knew she was my mom. That's why I knew so much about her plans." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she abandoned me, and because you've become more of a father to me in a few weeks than she was a mother in my whole life." 6 months later, Jonathan had legally adopted Isabel. The girl was healthy, studying at a good school, and had become the center of his life. His experience had made him rethink his priorities. Money, stocks, investments, all of that was important, but it was worth nothing without genuine people to share it with. Brenda was sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted murder and fraud. Dale received 10 years. All the stolen money was recovered, and Jonathan created a foundation to help abandoned children in the region. On Christmas Eve, as Isabel decorated the tree in her new home, she turned to Jonathan and said, "Daddy Jonathan, do you think everything happened for a reason?" He picked her up and hugged her tight. "I think so, little one. I think you were sent to save me, and I was put in your path to protect you. So we're a real family now." "The truest family there is," he replied, knowing that he had found a treasure far more valuable than any fortune, the unconditional love of a brave child who had transformed his life forever. If you enjoyed this wonderful story, please comment giving a rating from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important, and if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.